Hi, this is John Bosley, UBK Bosley. Video diary, it's the 17th of April. Hang on, Roxy. Tomorrow I appear in court at 10 o'clock. It's for disturbing the peace, communication, or shouting and bawling, causing distress, likely to cause distress. Various other things. The day in question was a strange one. I was working outside and relatively peaceful for around here, or I can't remember what day it was, but me and Roxy I was out the front. Roxy was sort of binding about on the drive, and I was out the front by the tunnel and chopping down some of the brambles and stuff that hang over the wall in case anything's going to catch somebody in the eye or whatever. And nearly got hit by some relatively young lad young man on a bike who was past. I just said, "Whoa, just ding your bell," something like that, and I think he made a gesture, but I ignored it, and he rode off. But and then he rode down the shops and came back, and when he came back he saw my broom amongst other bits and pieces down on the bottom of on the path outside the house. Decided to pick it up, shout something at me, and then ride off with it, which was all quite amusing, a bit sort of Laurel and Hardy. But I chased him up the road, and then he bent the broom. It was a plastic broom in half, lobbed over a fence and shouted a few obscenities, and so another day at in Summer Lane. I didn't want this fight, and I thought I was coming to this place to lick my wounds and rest. We've all had things in life we've had to deal with. I'm no different, and I've dealt with them mostly okay. I wasn't expecting this fight though, and I didn't want it. So again, my former friend Paul English and I knew that the implementation of this scheme, it does happen to be a skate park, but it was just done in such a speaking as a builder, not just a resident, I mean, it didn't have to be put in place in such a way or designed in such a way that it had to make communities adversarial. Like, why do the residents have to be at odds with the skateboarders? Why can't it be a thing that the whole community can enjoy? And you are going to get problems with the skate park. It will attract adolescents and young men and women, some of whom are pissed off with life or trying to handle things, or being a bit boisterous or whatever. And I live right on top of it. I don't object to kids having fun. Now that I can put my issues with noise down to mysophobia or misophonia, or whatever it's called, knowing that the noise triggers me because it's similar noise to what used to precipitate. And you guys who have suffered physical abuse know that in a household where there's going to be some physical jiggery pokery, it's usually preceded by clats and bangs and noise and arguments and rumbling, and so that similar noise to that, and I've experienced it elsewhere, triggers the fight or flight in me, which it did as a kid, because obviously if I didn't do that then I'd be in harm's way, which I often was. But what was worse was when other people were in harm's way, because witnessing somebody getting beaten up is probably a lot worse than getting beaten up yourself. Yeah, I've also had a bit of a ding dong with my neighbour. And that is something I regret enormously, because I won't name them, but they're just decent people, they're nice people. But he hates me with a passion because he was led to believe that I had not only ejected my wife, my previous wife, from my home, but had strangled her first. well, she would have been a bit of a dead weight to carry out of the door if I'd done that. She was relentlessly provoking me, and I've been emotionally abused by her for a long time, but I didn't really notice, if that makes sense, because emotional abuse, well, it's pretty common, isn't it? Most partnerships have an element of it one way or another. But I was busy working and trying to make some sort of life out of the bits and pieces that I was given. I'm not complaining, you know. Christ, I've met some people around here that, you know, got some stories to tell. I've never claimed that I'm alone in having hardship. Mine was a little bit more, well, the one big incident, but that meant that a life that was previously difficult became really poo. Being separated from my brothers, and I wasn't brought up with them in the end. We were brought up separately, although we kept in touch, but we weren't bonded, we weren't close. And that turned out to be the case when there's a possibility my ex-wife and my next oldest brother, who's dead now, drank himself to death, were perhaps plotting to get me to check out at my own volition. She had to make up some inheritance that she'd been cut out of because her mother probably had the measure of her, to be honest. I wish I'd had. I'm not perfect, not by a long way, but I'm not the monster that I've been made out to be. As for my neighbour, when we first moved here, just brilliant. You couldn't wish for better neighbours. She was always moaning about him. No, he's all peeping over the fence and I can't sunbathe and I can't this. I said, well, he's just friendly, you know, don't knock it. Since he now believes, or has believed for the last 3 or 4 years, that I'm a wife strangler, he obviously hates me, which I totally get. But he's entitled to hate me, he's entitled to have nothing to do with me, but he's also entitled to just leave me alone then. And I'll leave him alone. He's an 85-year-old bloke, for Christ's sake. He's done nothing to me except get wrong information and decides he doesn't like me. I don't need guests that visit here who inadvertently knock on his door and say, we're looking for number whatever mine is. Him to say, oh yeah, it's next door, you're going to go and stay with that weirdo. Well, I am a weirdo compared to my neighbour, because my neighbour's lived a pretty straightforward life. I'm sure he's had his ups and downs, but you know, I don't think he, you know, if you can't have a life like mine without being a little bit odd. I like being odd. Because when I get the chance, I'm odd nice. I like helping people, not battering them or punching them on the nose. Like the drunk out here that was making noise a while ago and unhappy with life. I went out there and had a chat with him and he was all over the place. I didn't punch him on the nose and break his nose. I just, right, where do you live? And he pointed. So I said, right, I'll walk you as far as you know where you're going, and then if you're okay, you can carry on, which I did. Walked him part of the way home. He knew where he was going. He was not too wobbly on his legs by then. So off he went. Another geezer who's known to this local area, who's got, you know, obviously drug problems, and he's in and out of prison to facilitate his, well, not because he facilitates his drugs by going to prison, he gets caught facilitating his drugs habit and then ends up in prison. But he was over the skate park riding a bike furiously up and down the ramps like a man possessed, which he probably was by God knows what. I walked past with Roxy and, you know, are you right, mate? Yeah. I started talking and trying to calm him down a bit. It's come have a bacon sandwich and a cup of tea. So he came over to bacon sandwich and a cup of tea, and then he saw the punch bag which was hanging up somewhere else, and well, can I have a go on that? And I thought, well, it might do him good to bring him down a bit, maybe. Which he did. He had a go on the bag, and he was good to go. Calmed him down. Nobody's any the wiser. No one's hurt. no one's disturbed, and he went on his way. And he did come back a few times, but I think he's been banged up again now, unfortunately. But yeah, it's an unfortunate situation with Ron. I mean, I think, with a person I allude to, by all means hate me for what you think I've done, but there's no need to sort of get your grinder out every time you see me in the garden when I'm sitting having a cup of tea or something, or of course a glass of wine, or several glasses of wine. Just leave me alone. You know, I've tried to build a big fence so that the noise you create doesn't disturb me or my guests. I'm sorry if I've caused any distress, but I've felt under siege here. The police have demonstrated that if somebody wants to park outside my house and wait for me to come home in broad daylight in their own car, they're free to do so. Or if they want to then run up my drive waving a hammer, one, and the other one waving an axe, and the police are called by a neighbour, because I wouldn't have bothered, knowing what I know, the police respond in 7 weeks with a phone call to explain to me who did phone and said, well, you were called apparently by a neighbour. What happened? Oh, we thought the danger had passed. Oh, okay. How did you know that? So that means that if I get attacked, physically, literally threatened. I mean, they didn't come up and say, I want to word with you, mate, if you blah, blah, blah. It was just running up the drive with waving their various hardware tools about. I dealt with the situation. Nobody got hurt. I stood my ground. I know the individual concerned, and there seems to be no issues now. Not really sure what the issue was before, but it means that, as I suspected, I'm at the mercy of all and sundry here. The police are not interested in protecting me or my dog or my property. That's quite a difficult thing to live with when you want to use your property to reassess your life, to recalibrate, to make sense of the nonsense that was your life. Why was your mum vaporised in a car bomb when she was working at a military camp in Aldershot 3 weeks after Bloody Sunday as a reprisal for Bloody Sunday? Why was there no security? How did the guy manage to drive a car in unmolested, park it next to where my mum and her friends, and I knew all of them, were sitting having their cup of tea or coffee, whatever, before they served the soldiers dinner at 1 o'clock. But the bomb went off a bit early, strangely, so it only killed some civilian workers. It didn't kill any soldiers apart from a padre chaplain who's attached to the parachute regiment, who were the alleged targets of this reprisal attack, having committed or been involved in the incident known as Bloody Sunday, where 14 civil rights protesters or rioters, whatever your standpoint, were shot, some in the back, by the parachute regiment, or members of the parachute regiment, who I have a great respect for, but nonetheless they are, or they were then, a certain type of soldier which you want when the shit's hit the fan. But perhaps a little bit of self-control that day might have gone down a bit better. But who am I to say? I didn't serve in Ireland, so I don't know what it's like to deal with the rigours of that environment. So the 50th anniversary was in 2022. I was in the midst of this big war with, it was supposed to be a conflab about how can you improve the antisocial behaviour issues and the noise issues of the skate park. The council were not interested at all, not a bit. And I wanted to fight them so much that I offered them in writing. I offered them I would procure, get the design and build an effective acoustic barrier. And I reckoned it would cost about £10,000, and at that time I had that money, and I was willing to pay £10,000 to build an effective acoustic barrier. All I wanted from them was the go ahead and maybe a couple of labourers for a couple of weeks or a week or so. That was declined, and then the acoustic barrier that was built is not particularly effective. It bounces the sound in one direction up to Arena Park, and the other sound merely ignores it, goes over the top of it, and you can hear it over the whole community. Again, not digging out the skateboarders, is what skateboarding is. It's clankety bang and it's noisy. But why should everybody have to share that when there's no need? What you have to do is take the park down a metre or so, keep it well below the railway line, job done. Don't know why that wasn't done. I also don't know why the drawings, which were only plan, which means looking down from above, showed only the lengths and widths and stuff of all the various apparatus, but showed the heights of the ramps in blue, in number, on a plan with no datum, so you still have no idea how high the ramps are. And when I queried this, I said, well, you haven't shown the information's on the drawing. Well, it's not. That's why I phoned you, or that's why I've emailed you. So the previous incumbent of Green Parks and Leisure, who apparently was the lead on that project, refused to provide me with the heights of the ramps. Now, any resident being concerned, not just about antisocial behaviour, but about the noise of skateboards hitting concrete and steel ramps, would want to know what is the height of that ramp in relation to where we live. And if they're denying you that knowledge or that information, how can you point out, well, that's going to be an issue, isn't it? Because the noise is just going to travel right across the whole community. From my point of view, the noise issue, or the misophonia, I did outline before I knew what it was to the environmental health person that came here apparently to take a sound reading. I did say to her, I don't know why the noise affects me so badly. I have got PTSD, I don't know if that's anything to do with it. But that made no difference. She took the noise reading, which found no noise because it was a Monday night at 7 o'clock. And then I was informed by Green Parks and Leisure, not Environmental Health, that there's no problem, we're not going to take any more sound readings, and if you've got any problem or you think it's a box ticking exercise, you can take it up with me. Well, I said, well, come and see me, and I can take it up with you. I didn't make that threat away. He could come and I said, well, come around here one night when it's in full swing and see if there's no need to take noise readings. But he's gone now. So it was just an unnecessarily aggressive stance from the outset, and kind of just opaque, nothing clear, nothing black and white. Oh, we'll see about this and we'll try this. Well, the skate park and the massive car park adjacent to it has been open for 3 years, unlocked 24 hours a day, because they've been waiting for a part for the gate. Okay, and yet during the COVID period, when it had to be closed, it was closed, albeit the skate park was broken into so they could skateboard. So methinks the design of the gates would allow a big motorcycle chain to be put round so that at 10 o'clock at night the whole thing could be locked up, but nobody obviously thought of that. But why did it take all of this for them, or the people involved with the facility? Why did it take this much pain and a man's death through heart attack after getting there, his house attacked with stones and rocks over a 6-week period? 6 weeks, not just overnight, one night, when you say, oh, it's one of them things. 6 weeks. And then shortly afterwards he succumbed to a heart attack, as I've alluded to before. I feel like I'm under siege here. Out the back here, as you can see, it's beautiful. It's paradise for me and my dog, which is the only thing that I've encountered that I truly trust and won't stitch me up. Well, I don't think so. And this is all I wanted, just to be able to just be in peace here and just live in peace. If people want to see me, they can come and see me. But when I go out that way, it's 99.9% of the people are brilliant, really lovely people. Don't care who they are. They're mostly decent people, but you just get idiots now and again, or like I was when I was drunk. But I couldn't get my head around this. Why such drama when, if the thing was built right and the thing was secured at night, like they said it would be, then everybody sleeps safely and everyone's tickety-boo. Isn't that what we all want? Skateboarders get their skate park, old people get a night's sleep, and they don't get terrified every time there's a big gang of kids coming down the street. I did lose my mind, probably for a couple of years really, or lose my ability to comprehend my reality. Until 3 years ago, I was a project manager, funny enough, at the university on East Park, returning a job that was the most profitable that company had ever done during COVID, and with a depleted management team which involved only me and one other, or a couple of others. And then I descended into a drunken lunatic, screaming and bawling and shouting and effing because nobody wanted to listen. You know, I do have PTSD, and I do apparently have misophonia, which is a big relief for me because it means I can understand why noise triggers me. It doesn't matter if it's a skateboarder's making it or, you know, some bloke doing DIY making it incessantly. It affects me. That's nobody else's fault but my own, or the circumstances that I found myself in. It is a weight off my shoulders knowing I've got this, because at least I can contain it and I can understand it. I just thought I was a freak. Why does noise set me off? And now I know why. A bit too late. I'm going to get the help I need though now. Apparently I'll be going to prison tomorrow. And the police have also said they will be taking my therapy dog off me. And closing my Airbnb business that I have set up with two amazing people, E and C, Ellie and Carol, opposite ends of the spectrum. Ellie's got her own problems, her own issues to deal with. Carol likes to have things to do, and they've been amazing. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, so I wouldn't be here. I would have knocked it on the head. But I just wanted to share this, you know. And it's been brilliant. We've met people from all over the world and they love it here. The only bad review I had was when a mental health worker from, of all things, the prison system, I think from Exeter Prison maybe, came to stay shortly after I was released in November. Going into prison in November, particularly Exeter young offenders, and not being allowed to move to the older blokes wing, D wing, was fucking traumatic. I didn't expect to go to prison. It's £129 worth of criminal damage, which I did in a drunken, for a change, protest about the fact that nobody gives a shit about somebody getting clattered out there at some point, and they will. Somebody will. A commuter or some poor woman pushing a pram, or a kid taking a kid to school. All these old people coming out of their drives, people whizzing down a thing with their earphones on or whatever. It's just a matter of time. So I petulantly poured paint all over the place or over the pavement and tipped rubbish out there, and drunkenly petulant, stupid thing to do. But I just wanted to put a marker down. The police attended based on information or intelligence that I was an ex this and an ex that. Well, I was definitely an ex this, but I was never an ex that. I've got no truck with the police. And they said that I had prepared for them by sharpening a pole. No. I poured paint on the thing, on the pavement outside. Then come back in. I had a dressing gown on, which is not what you normally put on to prepare for combat with the police, especially when they come in numbers, which they normally do. But I didn't expect them to have to come in numbers. I just thought I'd go back indoors, wait, they'd ring the doorbell, I'd get arrested, and that was it. But no, they turned up like the 7th Cavalry because I went to the commando base 40 years ago. So did hundreds of thousands of others. I actually served as a combat engineer in the Royal Engineers, which is not exactly, it's not too glamorous. And I'm not my brother, who had an armed standoff with the met police in 1996 because he was pissed off about our mum's death, and he was pissed off with it not being mentioned in during the Bloody Sunday inquiry. I get that. He had a couple of, well, he had an armed standoff and he ended up doing a year in prison, and it finished him. He ended up doing close protection in Iraq. He's ex-para, or was ex-para. He ended up doing close protection in Iraq with my other brother, but then he became an alcoholic and drank himself to death and died a couple of years ago. And he hated me more than I thought, more than I knew, almost as much as my ex-wife, which is how they found common ground. But that's another story. I'm not an animal. I just had a bad time. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I had to go about it the wrong way. And I acted like any animal acts when it's cornered, when it feels under siege, when it feels under danger, when it feels that anything or anyone can attack me just whenever it pleases. Even my lovely neighbour, you know, I think I was drunk, and he said, look, just leave me alone. If you don't like me, it's fine, but just leave me alone. Stop making noise and saying rude things about me to people that you don't know. So he wanged a fist through the trellis and tried to punch me in the face, which is a shameful matter of affairs, because, you know, for an 85-year-old bloke to want to punch me in the face, I can understand wanting to punch me in the face, but under these circumstances, if you want to punch me in the face, you see me have to form a queue. I don't dislike the man. I just wish he'd leave me alone, not interfere, you know, and I'll leave him alone. It's bad enough being under siege here and knowing that the police aren't going to bother if anything happens, and even if they do turn up, they usually take me away. It's a mess. It's not a mess of my. It's not a mess that I asked for. I suspect they're probably going to put some implementation in and protect people around here, and protect the skateboarders as well. The young kids that go there at sort of 7 o'clock, and then a bunch of older kids turn up, and it's all a bit threatening and a bit, you know. That's not what it looks like in the posters, is it? Little kiddies with mum and dad smiling in the background. It's not like that. It's not the real world. Well, I don't understand why you would build such a thing in such a way and then do all these things retrospectively when you promised that you would put some protections in place, which you haven't. And people are suffering. I've suffered. Jesus Christ, I've suffered. Not just from the noise, but by knowing that I've got now a much, much more increased likelihood of jiggery pokery or, you know, negative interaction out the front, which I try and avoid. Anyway, if you're watching this, thanks. And if you are local and you've met me and I've been an arsehole and whatever, well, if you punch me on the nose for it, fair enough. That's fair enough. If you've met me and I've been abusive to you and rude, then I'm sorry. Genuinely, I'm sorry. It's not what I am. It's not who I am. But when you're frightened and you're scared, and you started off life being frightened and scared, and you've worked all your life really hard, when you're not a clever bloke, you're not particularly gifted in anything, but you work your bollocks off so you can end up somewhere where you haven't got to be scared. And when you haven't got to worry about eating later on, you're going to get fed. Huh? It's not a lot to ask, is it? So I've done my service to the country. I've worked hard all my life, and I've been lucky enough to be all over the world. The world doesn't owe me fuck all, but I've earned enough just to be left alone in peace, and that's all I wanted. Anyway, thanks. God's love to you, whoever you are. Cheers.